All right, YouTube, I have been promising for a while to get back at this. So I've got my brand new shooting bench and pavilion here. I also have my brand new Garmin Zero chronograph here. And of course my Savage 110 Elite set up in 300 Win Mag. And I have been shooting the loads that I started to develop almost a year ago now. I did a ladder test here, and I just ended up shooting these here. I got 68.8 grains of Reloader 22, Alliant Reloader 22, all the way up to 69.8 in 0.1 increments. And in a moment, I'm going to go down and show you what we got, but I'm going to tell you it was really, really promising. Now, keep in mind, this is an entire grain of powder difference. But if you look here, this is what I got. I've got an extreme spread of 49.2 and a standard deviation of 13.5. And most all of these were really close. I had one that was unusually slow, which I'm suspecting is some anomalous thing. And in fact, that one was an outlier. It was kind of a flyer. This is the very first time I've been using this. I have been using my lab radar, and very first time I've used the Garmin, other than just messing around with it. And I did not realize if I have it sitting on session summary, it doesn't just update the numbers, it actually stops recording data. So you have to go back a couple screens to record data. And I figured that out the hard way because I didn't get data on the 69.3, although it is in the group. That flyer I mentioned earlier was right here, this furthest one right here. And when these go through the paper, they kind of blow a fairly large hole in the paper. But that right there, I don't know how well you can see that. That hole is the flyer. This one right here was the very last shot in the group, the highest charge weight right there. Otherwise, all the other ones were through here. Now, I'm gonna rip the target off so you can see the actual hole here. This is all just collateral damage, but they all went through that hole right there. And remember the quarter from last time? So that's significantly smaller than a quarter. And this is at 100 yards. I mean, my laser says it's like 103 yards from the bench to here. So basically, whatever that is right there, which, you know, if I line that up, it's definitely smaller than a quarter, you know, in every dimension. So clearly there's some hope there for a long range round. 100 yards is not necessarily always reflective of what it'll do at 1,000, but you know, pretty good. I'll show you the specs in a moment. So here we are back in the ammo room, and I've got all the different brass lined up here. The 68, 9, all the way through the 69.8. Now, this gun has some very distinct markings that it always puts on every round. I've even taken a piece of unfired brass, you know, loaded, you know, round, put it in the chamber, close the bolt, open the bolt, and I get a very light, shiny spot. You can see it right up here, right on the lapua, you know, where it's making some kind of contact there. And then when I shoot every round, the primer is flattened like that. Even the really light stuff I've made as an experiment, they're all flat like that. And there's also the tiniest bit of cratering. So that's pretty normal for this gun. Again, this is the lightest load in the set. Here is the heaviest load, you know, the 69.8, and it looks virtually indistinguishable here. No significant cratering beyond what we had. We still have that shiny spot. Nothing crazy there at all. Now, I've been talking about this round for a little while here. So this is the bullet that I happen to have around. It is the Hornady 30 cal 220 grain ELDX, part number 3078. And this is what it looks like right there. So if we go to the Hornady website here, we can see that this guy has a advertised G7 BC of 0.325, about I'm going to call it a $45 a box for 100 bullets. So now I've recently started to use the Berger twist rate stability calculator, and if I take a look at this bullet, I usually try really hard, per their instructions, to pick a bullet for a particular gun that is going to be somewhere on the right hand side of the 1.5 mark. It's close, but not quite there. These are all the specs for this. It's the G7 BC, the caliber, the weight, the length of the bullet, tip to tail, my average velocity as picked up by my chronograph, the barrel twist, and my temp and altitude. And this is telling me that it is marginally stable and not exactly optimized here. Now, as a point of reference only, I have the Sierra Match King in 220, which I have not shot yet out of this gun. I'm going to do that next. Very similar bullet in a lot of ways, but definitely different. Now, the twist rate calculator here, if I move to that one, says that it's going to be much more stable out here. So, of course, testing will tell, but I do have pretty good expectations for the Match King. If this guy, my concern here is that this is going to be an issue at long distance. At 100 yards, I mean, we pretty much got a tack driver here with the Hornady. So let's look at the other data we got. Now, first thing I'm going to say is, I got a chart here. I made that chart by, exporting the CSV from the Garmin Zero C1 app on my phone. And it's got the greatest feature ever for a reloader. There's a button where you can push in the app, and then if you have Dropbox, which I use dropbox.com, you can send the CSV directly to Dropbox. Dropbox is synced on this computer. The CSVs show up. No messing with SD cards or any of that stuff like the LabRadar. So that was really, really nice. First time I've ever used this thing today, right now. So I'm really liking it so far. But anyway, grab these, made a chart. Now, I've seen people manipulating data with charts in Sharp Shape for decades, and I want to be really, really transparent here. So I made this chart very wide and not very tall. If I change the shape of it, the graph shape changes dramatically. Now, I chose something like this. I'm going to call this like a little over 2-to-1 ratio here, because the numbers appear so very, very close. I didn't want this axis of the chart to be incredibly, tall, because it's going to throw off the shape, right? I feel like this is most representative. So if you don't agree, you can make your own chart or whatever, but this is how I feel comfortable looking at that data. So if I look up here at the actual raw numbers, the very first one, the 68.9, that came in at 2879.3. I allowed approximately 2 minutes. I was trying to get it about 2 minutes between each shot, so the barrel temperature would stay consistent. And the second shot, this was the flyer. I showed you the couple flyers that were low and right. They were shifted low and right. This one and this one. And if you notice, these all are dramatically different than the shots around them as far as their speeds. So something clearly anomalous happened here. Down 20 and up nearly 30 here. I'm sorry, down 20 and up 29 here. So 2 flyers, 2 unusuals. Otherwise, generally trending faster as we go up. And even with the fact that this entire graph is over the course of one whole grain of powder more, you know, the standard deviation is still 13.5 and the spread is 49.2. That's pretty respectable for a lot of you know, we'll call it not very well tuned rounds in load development. If I remove the two flyers, which I can know is not very scientific, but it can be telling about whether or not I need to do a retest, look at the difference. I'm nearly half on both of these numbers. Standard deviation of 8.4 and spread of 25.7. So, you know, I'm definitely gonna repeat this, but this is the exact range with the exact components that I made in the first video on this gun, showing the exact same results again, you know, virtually every round through the same 1/4 inch hole at 100 yards. Now, I did not know then that I know, like I know now, that this particular bullet may be kind of out of its optimal range for this gun. But, and of course, and I have not done any long range testing. I've only got 100 yards here. So know all these things going into this, but one more time from the top on my components here. I want to be really, really clear on the components this time. Everybody jumped all over the fact that I didn't include that. It's a Liant Reloader 22 powder. It is a Winchester large rifle magnum primer, not a match primer. This is all I had at the time. It's 100% new Lapua brass. Never been fired. The only thing I do is I do very carefully, very gently size the neck, because the Lapua brass is always a little tight. And then, and I put a, it was only a 0.002 bump on the neck tension on there. And then the bullet, again, it's that Hornady 220 ELDX, part number 3078, which may not be the best bullet for you to pick. One more quick thing, I almost forgot. Case overall length that I used in this test on my gun, which has a very deep throat, is 3.450. And again, 3.450. The Semi Max is 3.340. So I am a lot longer than Max. This is perfectly fine in my gun because I've got an MDT chassis with virtually no you know, headspace issue for the magazine. And again, it's got that really long throat, you know, in that chamber, and all of that works. So what I did is I measured this using the Hornady kit to, you know, measure the headspace, and then I went 40 back, you know, from Max at that point. Again, 40 back, and I intend to do headspace tuning as a second function here. So just keep that in mind. I'm way long. I have a 300 Win Mag hunting rifle. I guarantee you that this round will not work in that gun. I don't know if it'll go in the chamber or not. I've never tried, but it without a doubt will not go in the magazine of that gun. So just keep that in mind when you're putting this together, because obviously if you bring that overall length in quite a bit to fit a different gun, it's going to change everything.